You're in for a treat today because all the way from Park Avenue Synagogue, we have a lead Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove here to talk about his new book, For Such a Time as This. It is such an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's good to be here.
I mean, you have this incredible way of bringing people together. I would call you the unifying rabbi. I have heard you speak on the pulpit so many times. Thank goodness for YouTube. And I just walk away feeling so good and so proud to be a Jew because you don't shame anybody. You make everybody feel good about who they are. And it's all about unity, which comes through in your book. So tell us about what the objective was of your book. I mean, you put it together, you wrote this in a few months, and it came out right before the anniversary of October 7th.
Yeah. So, look, what does a rabbi do? On a certain level, a rabbi as a pastor is to give people the words, the vocabulary to give expression to the sorrows and the joys that they're going through. And I think we all, and when I say we all, I don't just mean the Jewish community, I mean everyone saw and witnessed and experienced something on October 7th that it took the wind out of us. We did not know what hit us. People talk about a sense of whiplash of where did this come from. And so what I sought to do, and I'm right, Shirin, in a very short amount of time, is to try to craft a narrative of how we got here, where we are, what we've been experiencing, both from a national perspective, a congregational perspective, also in the rabbi's office, right? The quiet, intimate conversations, and maybe a few thoughts on where we can go from here. Really a tool, a toolbox that people can have conversations about what we're experiencing right now.
I mean, personally, for me and so many of the moms, when October 7th hit, and then watching so many of our students on college campuses and high schools as well, the hate was just like a big splash of cold water on our faces. Yeah. We didn't know that it was there. We really had never experienced it before. And in your book, do you address the fact that it's been there, but we just haven't done anything about it? I mean...
Yeah, I think that the events of October 7th and subsequent to it have been experienced differently by different communities. I think for some, it was, where did this all come from? I begin the book talking about this dream of hyphenated identities. There's Asian Americans, Jewish Americans, evangelical Americans. We're all Americans. We all have different aspects of our being, but that's what makes America America, that we get to celebrate the symphony of American life. And we thought, as American Jews, that we were the exception. Yeah, there's anti-Semitism in Europe. There used to be anti-Semitism, but we thought there was some sort of exceptionalism going on in our story. And I think October 7th was a bucket of cold water, as you say. It was a sense like, maybe we're not that different. Maybe we're just another chapter in a long story of anti-Jewish hatred. And many people had this feeling of, where did this come from? There were some, though, who said, no, it's actually been there all along. You thought you were the exception. I told you so. The last 70 years, sort of since World War II to now, we had it good, but now it's just a reversion to the norm. So I think that's also part of the sort of subplot of what we've gone through, that for some it was a surprise and others it wasn't.
But now we know. So wherever we were, pre-October 7th, post-October 7th now, a year later, we all know. We've seen it, right?
Yeah.
And so what is your advice to parents who are raising, Jewish families so that our kids can grow up feeling really that Jewish pride and that deep value for our heritage and who we are, so when they go to college, they're not confused about, trying to fit in and knowing their role?
So if I had to distill it down to a word, it would be love. It was great to be a Jew on October 6th. It's great to be a Jew today, right? We cannot give our haters the right to define who we are. I describe in the book two kinds of Jews, and I didn't come up with the language. A teacher of mine, Rabbi Daniel Hartman, spoke of it in a different context, but there's Genesis Jews, God's call to Abraham, you shall be a blessing. This is a positive pull of what it means to be Jewish. And then there are Exodus Jews, where a Pharaoh arises and defines the Jews as other, to be oppressed, to be hated, to be feared, a fifth column from within. That's a Judaism that's defined by the push, other people defining who we are. Look, people may have been Genesis positive Jews before October 7th. On October 7th, we all became Exodus Jews. We all became othered by those who would hate us. The challenge, and here I speak to the parents, your listeners, is we need to build that foundation of a positive Jewish identity, because we can't give other people the victory of defining who we are. We need to define ourselves in a positive way.
So how do we do that? I mean, how do we do that? We are given this gift of these beautiful children from the time they're born. We choose for them, right? We're their parents.
Well, it starts really young. I'll put it in real simple terms. Challah on a Friday night, grape juice, right? Judaism has a series of rituals welcoming friends, Jewish, non-Jewish, into the home on Friday night. You have to build a foundation of love and connectivity to what it is, this gift of being Jewish, and then create literacy so our kids feel at home in the story of our people, right? There's a beautiful image that everyone is like a letter in the Torah scroll, right? We all belong in that narrative, and we have been given a spiritual inheritance from those who came before us, and we pass it down, please God, to those who follow us. And if we can enable our children to feel that they are woven into the tapestry of our story, I believe that that can withstand the slings and arrows of campus life, of the hatreds, and otherwise. As long as you have a home base, that's the most important thing.
That's it's a beautiful way of putting it. It's joyful Judaism. It's just
Yeah.
incorporating it in every day. And then what happens if you didn't do that, or you did and things went wrong? And then, October 7th hits and we saw the hate on campuses, and your kids are there marching with the pro-Hamas Klan. I mean, I had dozens of moms, reaching out to me saying, what do I do?
Yeah, I have a chapter in the book on this. A young woman named Maya, that's not her real name, but I have 4 college kids myself. And this is a young woman, brilliant young woman who's grown up at my kitchen table, sleepovers with my kids all the time. And she came up to me and said, Rabbi Cosgrove, and I tell this story, you have an Israeli flag on your pulpit. You sing the prayer for the state of Israel. And then she went on to explain that she doesn't believe in nationalism, that the Israeli government doesn't reflect her values as a liberal, progressive campus Jew, right? And it was a gut moment for me, because I joke that this young woman shares half a brain with my own kids. So there's something very personal about the book. And unlike some of my colleagues, and I don't know if we agree or disagree on this, I don't think you can disallow that. You can't write off a generation of Jews, right? Their points of reference are different from mine. They've grown up only with a right-wing government in place. They've only grown up with an expansionist policy of the Israeli government. They've only grown up with Israel as the Goliath to the Palestinian David. And so you can't tell a young person that their story isn't their story. All you can do is force might be the wrong word, prompt that person to ask and interrogate their own views. Okay, so you don't believe in a nationalist formulation of the Jewish people. So how do you square that with thousands of years of Jewish vulnerability? Or you don't approve of every decision of the Israeli government, but let's talk about the ring of fire around the state of Israel, and Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. There are differences between them, but what they all share in common is the shared hope for the destruction of Israel. And then do the most important thing of all, which is stop talking. Prompt that young mind to articulate a response that can withstand the existential threats of the Jewish people. It might not be yours, but what you've done is ask that person to be a stakeholder in the well-being of the Jewish story. And I think you can get a lot more out of that connectivity with the next generation by engaging in dialogue than by telling someone that their voice doesn't matter.
That's great advice. I think that's so important to do. And you're absolutely right. I agree with you. I mean, you talk about having the Israeli flag on the pulpit, and you talk a lot about American Zionism.
Yeah.
Can you share with us a little bit about what that means to you?
Yeah. For me, uh, my Jewish identity is inseparable from my support and engagement for the state of Israel, right? Through no merit of my own, I was born into a time of a sovereign state of Israel. For thousands of years, Jews have prayed, hoped, aspired for this moment, and you and I live in that moment. It is unconscionable to think of a Jewish identity that isn't somehow connected, not just to the sovereign state of Israel, but where 47% of world Jewry lives. Their well being is my concern. And so their fears are my fears. I think that's sort of the secret sauce of Jewish identity, to feel a sense of global connectivity. And the crimes against that were perpetrated on October 7th weren't just crimes against Israelis, they were crimes against Jews. Frankly, they were crimes against humanity, the atrocities that occurred that day. And so my American Zionism is an American Zionism that works tirelessly day and night for the safety and well-being of my brothers and sisters. I have family who's serving in the IDF. My nephew is serving in Gaza right now. I mean, this is not family in an abstract sense. This is family in my WhatsApp daily, hearing about their well-being.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't think we can exist as a Jewish people without the state of Israel. It's our home. And I'm so excited because I'm going in a few days to see my family, because they've all been serving in Gaza and they're home, luckily, when I get there, so I can hold them and embrace them. But it is home. And when we go to Israel, there's a feeling for Jews that this is home.
Yeah, I call it in the book, I call it the invisible thread, right? That wherever we are, we feel somehow that we are stakeholders in that story of the Jewish people globally and the story of the sovereign state of Israel. It's home.
It's home.
It's home.
And how important is it for families to travel with their children to Israel to actually see it and feel it?
I think it's huge. One of the great discoveries of my rabbinate at Park Avenue Synagogue is the importance of taking young families to Israel. Now, right now, I think is a difficult time. It's not the time to climb up Masada and dip in the Dead Sea and have those first experiences with young children. But here's the thing. Only a parent can make the willed decision to give their children their first experience visiting Israel. And then they may or may not remember all the particulars, and they're certainly not, as young kids, going to get the geopolitics of what's going on in Israel. But they will see that photograph on the mantle in the home, and they will know that for the rest of their lives, going to Israel is returning to Israel because they were there. And so as a parent, I feel that if one is physically able, financially able to do it, I think it is a huge mitzvah, a huge opportunity to give our kids the gift of a first trip to Israel.
Ah, I love it. I get emotional because I think it's so beautiful. Both of my first daughters were bat mitzvah in Israel. And I think when you go and you see and you realize how beautiful it is, and the fact of how accepting of all people Israel is. And unfortunately, that narrative has been ruined. I mean, there's a false narrative here now. And it's something we talk about college campuses. So many of our gay friends, they're the gay kids on college campuses feel that they can't come out with their Jewish pride because they will no longer be accepted in their gay communities on campuses.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the pernicious aspects of the anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism right now. That somehow, right, I forget who came up with this concept, but that whatever the most negative stereotype in society is, right, that we assign that, or society assigns that to the Jews. right? So in ancient times, it might have been theological that Jews killed Christ. In Nazi times, it was a moment where Jews were called communists or capitalists. The worst thing you can call someone right now in this moment of intersectional identity politics is a colonialist oppressor. And so Jews, by extension, their support of Israel, have become the worst of society. And the irony being that it's Jewish voices right now that are marginalized, whether or not that could be a Hillel on campus, that because they're also supporting Jewish self-determination, they're not invited into progressive conversations. It could be a film festival where an Israeli filmmaker is not there, or an academic conference where an Israeli scholar is not permitted to be there. But that slide from sort of this genteel anti-Semitism to the more vulgar kind of physical or verbal violence, it happens. And what starts as is one form never ends there. It always slides into a very dangerous, terrible anti-Semitism.
Are you worried, Rabbi, that things are going to escalate and become worse?
Right now, I'm not sure exactly when this episode is going to drop, but I'm very worried. This is a moment of time. We're all looking at the news. We're watching what's going on in Lebanon. We're watching at everyone posturing in Iran saying that they're going to counterattack Israel. This is a moment where I think that there are existential threats. I think that this is a moment that it's not about a he said, she said, exactly where a border is or who started what. This is a moment where the enemies of Israel seek Israel's destruction. And whatever your politics are, you could be on the left, you could be on the right, but there are those in this world who seek Israel's destruction right now. And so, unfortunately, it's a very scary time.
But regardless of where we stand politically, and regardless of our personal beliefs, we are all Jews in the diaspora.
Yeah.
So if there is one piece of advice that you want to share with all of us on what it is that we can be doing in the diaspora, look at the camera over there and share a message that you want to share with all
So the name of the book is For Such a Time as This. It takes its message from the biblical book of Esther, where Esther, who had hidden her Jewish identity in the palace of the king, was called on by her uncle to say, who knows if it was not for such a time as this that you've arrived at your station. And Esther responded, and the Jewish people were saved. I think we all need to find our Esther moment. For me as a congregational rabbi, it's leadership, it's advocacy, it's philanthropy, it's engagement with Israel. Everyone needs to find their lane where you can defend Israel's right to self-determination, and also where you can assert a positive Jewish identity that's defined by your love of people and tradition, not by those who hate us.
Wow. Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove, what an honor it has been to chat with you. I can't wait to read your book and gift it to my friends, especially non-Jewish friends as well, who need to read it. You are a light. We thank you for being here. You saw it right here. If you don't follow Rabbi Cosgrove, make sure you do, because you will get great glimpses and inspiration and unity and love, something we all need so badly right now. And we hope to see you next time right here on Moms Matter.